My name is Amina, and this is my story. I used to think that love was something you could earn. You see, when I married Aziz, I thought I had it all figured out. I was the perfect wife, obedient, loving, and devoted. But life has a way of showing you how little you truly understand. Aziz and I had been married for 8 years. In those years, I did everything to keep his love. I cooked his favorite meals, dressed in ways I knew he liked, and even learned things in the bedroom that I was too shy to talk about. Yet no matter what I did, it was never enough. Aziz was a perpetual cheat. I found myself standing at the door of every new affair, praying this one would be the last. One day, one of his friends, a man I barely knew but who always had a kind word for me, took me aside. He told me something that would haunt me for days. "Amina," he said, "stop changing yourself so much. Nothing keeps a man except a man who wants to be kept." His words stuck with me, though I continued trying. I had become a stranger to myself in the mirror, always on edge, always thinking about how to please him more, how to make him stay. But the day came when I knew I had nothing left to give. Aziz had been more secretive than usual, and I knew he was seeing someone new. The usual signs were there: late nights, the sudden showering after he came home, the constant phone checking. But this time I wasn't going to let it slide. This time I was going to confront the woman who was stealing my life, piece by piece. The truth is, I wanted to push her into marriage to Aziz. Perhaps he may stop cheating. I used Aziz's phone to set up a meeting with her. Hafsa was her name, and she thought she was meeting him at a restaurant they frequented. Instead, she found me, sitting calmly at a table, waiting. Her eyes widened when she saw me, but I motioned for her to sit. "I'm not here to cause trouble," I began, my voice steady though my heart pounded in my chest. "I just want to talk." She sat down cautiously, eyeing me like a cornered animal. I could see she was younger than me, prettier in a way that spoke of easy confidence, the kind that comes from not having to worry about anyone but yourself. "You're nothing but a side chick," I told her, the words sharp on my tongue. "If you had any real value, you'd be married by now." Hafsa's eyes flashed with anger. "What makes you think you have the right to talk to me like this?" she demanded. "Because you think you can take what I built," I shot back. "But if you're so good, why hasn't he married you yet? Or are you just content with the crumbs?" The conversation grew heated. I dared her to push for marriage, to demand from Aziz what I had: a security, a home, a family. "If you're so important to him, then marry him," I said. She was livid. "I will take over your home," she hissed at me. "I'll be the wife he truly loves, and you'll be the one left alone." I left the restaurant with a heavy heart, knowing I had pushed her toward something she hadn't fully considered. However, I also wanted her to understand that she isn't so better than me as Aziz told her in their chats. I also used to be his better. Well, it wasn't long before Aziz came home one evening, hesitant and nervous, and told me he wanted to marry Hafsa as his second wife. We were Muslims after all, and it was his right, he said. I simply nodded, feeling the walls close in around me. Their marriage was quick, and Hafsa moved into the home I had built, the life I had struggled to maintain. But it didn't take long for her to realize that being a wife was nothing like being a side chick. The endless comparisons began. "Amina does it this way," Aziz would say, or "Why can't you be more like Amina?" The man she thought would worship her began to show his true colors. The little annoyances turned into big arguments, and I could hear them fighting from down the hall. Hafsa would often confront him, tears in her eyes, demanding why he pursued her if Amina was so perfect. But Aziz had no answers. Instead, he withdrew, leaving her alone, just as he had left me so many times before. Then came the day when she found out he was cheating again. I saw the look on her face, the same look I had worn countless times. She was shattered, broken in a way I had come to know too well. I watched her retreat into herself, wondering aloud what the other woman had that she didn't. I wanted to tell her the truth, that it wasn't about her, or me, or anyone else. Aziz was a man who could never be satisfied, A man who would always search for something new, something better, and leave behind destruction in his wake. As the months passed, Hafsa became a ghost of the confident woman I had met in that restaurant. She realized too late that being a side chick was easy. You only had to show up, look pretty, and be available. But being a wife, that was something entirely different. It was about sacrifice, about giving more than you receive, about holding on to something that often feels like it's slipping away. I don't know if Hafsa ever truly understood that she had lost before she even began. I, on the other hand, had found a strange sense of peace. I no longer cared to fight for Aziz's love. Instead, I focused on myself and the children who depended on me. I knew the statistics, the research that showed the detrimental effects of divorce on kids. So I stayed not for Aziz but for them and for myself. In the end, it wasn't love that kept me in that marriage. It was survival. And I would survive no matter how many Hafsas came into our lives. The tension in our home had reached its breaking point. Hafsa, once the doting second wife who had fought so hard to take over my place, was now a shadow of the woman she used to be. The realization that Aziz wasn't who she thought he was had hit her hard. She no longer cared about pleasing him, no longer fussed over his every need. Instead, she started showing him the same coldness he had shown me all those years. She would go out without informing him, hang out with friends late into the night, and leave him wondering where she was. And Aziz, always so used to being in control, couldn't handle it. The jealousy that gnawed at him was something new, something he had never felt before. He tried to punish her by switching his attention back to me, but I was done. I gave him nothing. No warmth, no affection, not even a glance that showed I cared. Aziz was caught in a storm of his own making. His 2 wives had stopped caring, had stopped fighting for his love, and it drove him mad. The house that had once been filled with tension between Hafsa and me was now quiet, too quiet, as both of us focused on our own lives and left him to his wandering ways. One evening, everything came to a head. Aziz found a chat on Hafsa's phone, a message from another man. The fury that followed was unlike anything I had seen before. He tore through the house, shouting, accusing her of infidelity, of dishonoring their marriage. Hafsa, for the first time, stood her ground. "Yes, I'm talking to someone else," she said, her voice calm but defiant. "And why shouldn't I? You've been cheating on me since we got married. I regret marrying you, but we have a child now. Let's just focus on our extramarital affairs and live our lives." Aziz couldn't take it. The thought of another man even remotely interested in Hafsa drove him to the edge. His anger boiled over, and he tried to justify his actions, claiming that as a Muslim, he was entitled to 4 wives. Hafsa looked at him with a mix of disgust and pity. "Permission for 4 wives isn't permission to cheat," she said, her words slicing through the air like a knife. Aziz laughed, a mocking hollow sound that echoed through the room. "And yet, I cheated with you before I married you," he sneered. "So what does that say about you?" Those words struck Hafsa hard, the weight of them pulling her down as the reality of her choices settled in. It was in that moment, for the first time, that she truly understood the pain she had caused me. The humiliation, the betrayal, the loneliness, all of it came crashing down on her. She wrote me a message that night, a long, heartfelt apology. She poured out her regret, her sorrow, her shame for being part of the pain that had been inflicted on me. She admitted she had been blinded by the idea of love, thinking she could save Aziz from himself, only to realize that she was just another woman in a long line of broken promises. When I received her message, I felt a strange sense of peace wash over me. I had moved on from that pain, but her words brought a sense of closure I didn't know I needed. I responded simply, telling her I held nothing against her. "I wish women could stop fighting one another for the choices of a grown man," I wrote. "We should stop believing we are a man's saving grace just because we haven't yet entered marriage with him." Then Aziz, in his quest to hurt us, intensified his promiscuity. There are days he won't even come home. For Hafsa, that was the final straw. She had married Aziz for the gifts, the outings, the attention, and the belief that she would be everything I couldn't be. But unfortunately, All of that had disappeared once she became his wife. The love she thought she was getting was a lie, a mirage that vanished the moment she stepped into my shoes. Eventually, she packed her things and left Aziz, taking their child with her. But the story didn't end there. I wish it had ended. But Aziz, in his relentless pursuit of new women, kept jumping from one to another, never satisfied, always searching for something more. It was only after Hafsa had left that she discovered she had contracted HIV. The news shattered her, and she immediately informed me. The fear that gripped me as I went to get tested was unlike anything I had ever felt. The result confirmed my worst nightmare. I was HIV positive too. I was numb, the world around me dissolving into a blur of regret and despair. The realization hit me like a freight train. I should have left. I should have walked away while I still had my health, my life. Staying with a perpetual cheat had cost me everything. I spent days locked in my room, crying, mourning the life I could have had, the life I should have fought for. The strength I had prided myself on, the mental resilience that had kept me going, suddenly felt like a cruel joke. No matter how strong a woman is mentally, staying with a man like Aziz is a costly mistake, one that no one should ever have to pay for with their health. Hafsa, broken and regretful, reached out to me again, but this time there were no words left. We were both victims of the same man, victims of our own choices, and there was nothing left to say. Aziz continued his downward spiral, but I was done with him, done with the pain, done with the lies. As I looked at my children, I knew I had to keep going, not for him, not for anyone else, but for them and for myself. I had paid the ultimate price for staying, but I would not let it break me. I would survive, I would raise my children, and I would live no longer as a victim, but as a woman who had learned the hardest lesson of all. In the aftermath of it all, as I pieced my life back together, I realized that I had learned something crucial, a lesson I wish I had known before it was too late. For those who find excuses to stay with a serial cheat, convincing themselves that they are doing it for the children, or out of fear of being alone, I urge you to reconsider. Staying with a man who disrespects you, who betrays your trust time and time again, is not an act of strength. It's a slow, painful self-destruction. No amount of love, no sacrifice, no effort will ever be enough to change a man who refuses to change himself. To the women who think being a side chick is special, who believe that the attention, the gifts, and the secrecy make them more desirable, more important, know this. You are living in a fragile fantasy. The man who cheats with you will likely cheat on you. The thrill you feel now will one day turn to the same pain you helped inflict on another woman. There is no glory in being a side chick, only a hollow victory that leaves you empty and alone when the excitement fades. In the end, I realized that self-respect, peace of mind, and true love can only be found in a relationship built on trust and mutual respect. Anything less is a compromise that will cost you more than you could ever imagine. If I could go back, I would have chosen differently. But now, all I can do is move forward, sharing my story in the hope that it might save someone else from making the same mistakes I did.